excited to be back. This conversation will be about women's rights and reproductive rights and justice. Today we have with us Suzann Levine, Noreen Farrell, and Stephanie Toti on the end. And I'm going to start the panel the same way we did last time. Everyone on the stage here has a very impressive bio and a long list of accomplishments that you should read about. But to get to know them a little bit better, I want to start off by asking each of you how you came to this work and how, in the face of many obstacles, have you decided to stick with it and stay in it?
Well, I came in the sort of the back door. When I went to work as editor of Ms. Magazine, I was hired because I knew how to run a magazine. I knew nothing about feminism. And it was the women who worked there who were the activists and the really inspiring, courageous women. I sat in the office for a while and just corrected copy and was very safe there. But when I got to Ms., here's where I was in the world. I had just gotten married, so I couldn't get credit without my husband's signature. If I looked for a job, I had to look under Help Wanted Women, and I couldn't even peek at Help Wanted Men. I had had an illegal abortion and never told anybody. When I went to the Harvard Club, where I paid the same dues as everybody else, I had to go in a side door and eat in a separate dining room unless I was accompanied by a man. And the worst thing about it was that I didn't even notice. I assumed that that's the way the world worked. Excuse me. It didn't take long to realize how wrong I was and how much we needed to change things. And I soon came to understand the notion that the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And what's amazing, and given that it was so long ago, for the first 5, 6, 7 years, we were on a roll. Title IX, Roe v. Wade, so many, first woman on the Supreme Court. I mean, they just seemed to become, everything seemed to be working out. And when the ERA went through Congress with hardly a peep, it looked like, the job was getting done. And the high point, I think, at that, for us who had gotten that far, was Houston, which was a conference of 15,000 women who were selected from all the states in the country, and came together to work out a feminist platform. And it was so exciting. All 3 first ladies were there. You may all know this, but it was like a moment of triumph and a celebration of triumph. And at the same time, along came Phyllis Schlafly, who really single-handedly turned the issue of the Equal Rights Amendment around. And that was the first realization, I think, for many of us, that as we got more influential, the backlash would get bigger too. And I think that applies today. I think this struggle between the backlash and the forelash is the way it works. I wanted to say one thing about the way things change, because this was something that was very meaningful to me. The first the first step in making change, it became clear because we were doing a magazine with words, is naming something. When sexual harassment became a name, rather than, as Gloria Steinem says, it was just called life, you could begin to talk about it. And once you could talk about it, you could discover that you weren't the only one. And then you could discover that together you could really deal with this. And then along comes a very courageous person, like Anita Hill, and she stands before a row of balding white men who, I hate to say this, but you probably know that Joe Biden was the one who refused to let the women who had come forward to corroborate her story speak. And she was all alone. And since then, we've talked more, we've acted more, and I think this moment is, well, we could talk about, but I think sexual harassment is now a significant issue. Women are being believed, women are coming forward, and I think, in my experience, that's how change happens. And I think maybe even today, all that's going on means that we're getting closer because people are getting angrier. And as Gloria Steinem also, she says things so well. I mean, you could just like have a button with her slogans on it. She said, this is a revolution, not a reform. And I think that explains the virulence of the backlash.
Noreen?
Well, I definitely come here in the spirit of revolution, not reform. I run a national nonprofit in San Francisco, and we've been advocating for women and girls for many decades. But I come to this very, very clearly aware, acutely aware of the struggles of women in low-wage jobs. My mother was, when she was widowed with 5 kids, she became a domestic worker. And, you know, just watching how women and women's work has been devalued and how it impacts not just one's sense of self-worth, but also your ability to save, to go get educated, to prepare for your retirement. It's an issue that really fuels my passion for this work. And now I remember about 10 years ago, I thought, oh my gosh, there's only 10 people in my organization. I'm not sure, like, how can we do revolution? And then there's the social media revolution and the digital revolution, and suddenly we can put out a Facebook page and 100,000 people can sign up to boycott Black Friday. And so I feel incredibly energized by the power of the generations in this room and how we're propelling the movement. And I think it really bodes well for what's going to be happening after Election Day. And hopefully what's going to get us to the election day.
Well, I work at the Center for Reproductive Rights, which is a nonprofit legal organization that's focused on advancing reproductive rights and ensuring that everyone has equal access to safe reproductive health care services. I think it was my grandmother's influence that probably led me to this work. When I was a little kid, I remember her telling me that her biggest regret in life was not being able to attend high school. She was the daughter of Italian immigrants. She grew up in Brooklyn. She was the oldest of 9 children. And I mean, my grandmother's a very smart woman. She's still alive. She's 91 years old. She did very well in school, but her parents were concerned that too much education would make her unmarriageable. And that, of course, was, in their view, the highest thing to which she could aspire. You know, she should be married, she should have 9 children of her own. And so they pulled her out of school when she was 13 and sent her to work in a curtain factory. And she regretted this tremendously, and she made a point to let me know, and my sister and my cousins, and to make sure that we both appreciated all of the educational opportunities that we had, but also that we understood the importance of resisting traditional gender roles. And the limitations on people's potential that those roles impose on both women's potential and men's potential. And so I see reproductive rights and reproductive justice as an essential component of gender equality. I think it's not possible for women to participate in the political and economic and social life of the nation on equal terms with men unless they are able to control the number and spacing of their children. And so that's what led me to this work, and there certainly are a lot of challenges, but I find the challenges to be motivating. It just means that there's more work to be done, and when you hit an obstacle or you hit a roadblock, I think it means you just need to work that much harder. You need to come up with a new strategy for how to overcome it.
There have then been endless motivation for you over the past 5 years doing abortion and family planning work. For those of you who don't know, Stephanie argued the recent case before the Supreme Court that led to the knocking down of the trap laws in Texas.